Hey, this is Chaotic here with another CZN video. Today we're going to discuss the new limited character, Heidemarie, and how you should pull her and invest in her so that you can maximize your account. So let's begin by going over her cards and as well as her mechanics. So the two keywords that you want to pay attention to are linked, which says when this card is used manually, discard all other linked cards in hands. So essentially, when they're linked, you see a blue link that combines the cards, and when one is played, the first one, then all the other ones that are linked together, they are all discarded. So if they don't have a quietus or a discard text, then those cards will not perform any additional functions. And then the other word is quietus. And when this card is discarded, activate this card. This card cannot be moved from the use pile for this turn. So essentially, if the card has quietus on the text, then if that card is discarded, then the text for that card will be activated. So for example, this one, if you do not pay the cost of this card, and this card is discarded from your hand, then you still draw 3 and apply link to those cards for this turn without paying the cost for this card. So now that we understand these two keywords, quietus and link, we can take a look at her kit. So her basics, Sword Flash will increase damage amount to Effulgent Blade. And let's just take a look. Effulgent Blade is a linked card, attack card, and 151% damage. And that is if you play the card. Now, if you discard this card, then you get 151% extra attack to a random enemy. This card does not move to draw pile and shuffle. Then, if you are able to apply Quietus to this card and you're able to discard this card, then you will get both the 151% damage as well as the 151% extra attack damage. Then going to her first damage attack skill card, Sword Rain. This one has some a little bit of utility since it does create effulgent blades on most of these epiphanies. Then here the first one has linked in quietus, so that even if you discard this, you still gain the damage as well as the attunement, which you get at the draw phase. So as soon as you draw this card, then you gain 2 effulgent blades. So I really like this first epiphany since it's a lot easier to use with the quietus keyword. Then 2, you'll add a hit for each effulgent blade in hand, and it's not easy to stack quite a few of these effulgent blades unless you're running a certain build, and you'll want to be playing the Sword Rain as the first card since it doesn't have quietus. And then third epiphany, Sword Rain, activate 5 effulgent blade and graveyard as an extra attack. This is a good skill to choose if you're able to create a lot of these effulgent blades. There's a card later on that we'll talk about that will create effulgent blades and send them to your graveyard. So that will synergize very well with this epiphany. And then number 4, create 2 effulgent blades and apply retreat for those cards. Don't think this one's too useful. There's another one of her cards that specializes in creating effulgent blades. So with this card, I would rather have Epiphany 1 so that you can create the effulgent blade on attunement and then also get some damage out of this with quietus and link. And then Epiphany 5, I'm not sure how useful this card is. It's got exhaust, finale, so as soon as you use this card, your turn ends, and then you use this card is also exhausted, and because it has a unique tag, you can only have 1 copy of this. So it does 630% damage to all enemies, and then if Effulgent releases in hand. It also exhausts that card and adds plus 100 damage amount to this card for each Effulgent Blade and Graveyard. So technically this can be quite a big nuke, an AoE nuke, but once you use it, then this card is gone. Hero to All is her utility card. This card has a lot of draw. This first Epiphany is likely my favorite, since I do like the Linked and Quietus combination that allows this card to be a lot more flexible in playing. And as long as you discard this card, then you still get the draw 3. And once you draw 3, then all 3 of those will be linked together. Keeping in mind, if you draw another combatant's cards, those will be linked too, and they don't have a Quietus or discard function on the card, then those will just be discarded with no use. Epiphany 2 is a little bit more difficult to use since it's not linked, and you'll need to synergize this card with another character that can use Quietus, such as Deanna. If she's able to apply Quietus to her cards, then applying Link to 1 cost or lower cards in hand will be very helpful, since you'll be able to discard those and then gain all the benefits of the card itself. And then version 3 is less draw power, only draw 1. Apply Link to Quietus cards in hand for this turn, and that way you can chain them all together, play 1 card, and essentially play them all. I think I will still prefer Epiphany 1 since it has 3 draw on it. Then number 4 is Exhaust 2. Select 1 card from either draw pile or discard pile, then apply Link to the card and move to hand. I think this one is a decent option, especially if you're able to copy the card. For 0 cost, you can play this at the beginning, and then you can choose any card in your deck to pull it out, such as a Persona card. That can be pretty handy if your Persona card, there's one that will discard 2 cards and can start your chain. Then Epiphany 5 has haste. Draw 2 attack cards of this unit and apply Link to all attack cards in hand. So this one can be useful. It depends on the build that you want to go for. She only has 2 attack cards, and the first one does have a few epiphanies that are skill. And if you are going to be using a lot of attack cards, then this can be a useful epiphany, and then linking them all together, playing the first one, and then playing them all at the same time. Thread of Light, this is her main damage card. First Epiphany is 220% damage, plus 180% damage for each link card in hand. So technically, if you're able to link up to 6, 7, 8 link cards, then this can easily surpass 1,000 damage. And this will be the beginning of your link chain. Play this card, and then the rest of your link chain would play and discard, as long as they have a discard function or a Quietus keyword. Then this first card would be a good option to choose. And then number 2 is 378% damage. If 3 or more link cards are in hand, triple the damage. Since she's not too AP heavy, this one can be a good choice, since it's not too difficult to link up 3 or more in hand, and triple the damage of 378 should be around 1,000. But if you compare it to the first one, if you're able to link about 4 cards, then Epiphany 1 will already outdamage Epiphany 2. So I would put Epiphany 1 slightly ahead of 2 for now. And then 3 is Linked and Quietus, and if this card is in hand or graveyard, plus 80% damage amount to link cards. So this one will have some utility, as well as a combo of Linked and Quietus. So of all 5 of these Epiphanies, this one is my favorite. And usually I probably wouldn't copy this card and just choose this one card to buff the damage of the other link cards, and then focus on other cards to create Effulgent Blades. Then Epiphany 4 is a 3 cost, Linked and Exhaust. Activate all link cards in hand without discarding them. So this is just a one-time use and not too easy to play since it is a 3 cost. And then the linked will discard this, but if you discard this, you don't get the activation of all the cards. So this one is lacking the quietest keyword, so it's a little bit difficult to play. So it's not my preferred card, or Epiphany. Then Epiphany 5, 2 costs for linked and unique. When used manually, you get the 441% damage times 2, and if discarded, then AoE 378% damage. Then Effulgent Expansion is her card that will create Effulgent Blades. And the first Epiphany here is Linked and Quietus, again, my favorite combination. And you'll get 70% damage amount to Effulgent Blade for 1 turn. Epiphany 2 does not have the linked keyword. The damage is similar if you compare 200% to the next two. That's 400% damage, and then version 1, if you're able to, if you have 6 Effulgent Blades, then you already surpass the damage from Epiphany 2. And then that also includes the linked keyword. So I would rate this Epiphany 1 ahead of Epiphany 2. And then number 3 is create Effulgent Blade for each linked card in hand. This one, I tried using it. It's definitely not simple to use just because it doesn't have Quietus. And if you have this link and it gets discarded, then you don't actually get the create Effulgent Blades part of this text. So really this card needs the Quietus keyword for it to be more functional. And then Epiphany 4 is linked in Quietus. Create 6 Effulgent Blades in discard pile. So this one has a lot of synergy with the previous card. If you're able to copy this card, 3 to 4 copies, and each turn you can drop 18 and 24 Effulgent Blades in your discard pile, you can easily create a huge nuke from 2 of your attack cards. And then Epiphany 5, Effulgent Expansion upgrade. It's a Quietus as well as unique. At the start of your turn, create 2 Effulgent Blades. So this one will thin out your decks, and you won't have to play this card again after the first time. And it having the Quietus keyword, you're able to discard this card and then still gain the benefit of playing the card. And then also, similar to Epiphany 1, you get a smaller plus 50% damage amount to Effulgent Blade. Ideally, I think you want to copy this card before the Epiphany, or even after the Epiphany, you can re-roll it again. But ideally, I think you want to have the upgrade version as well as Epiphany 1, possibly Epiphany 4 if you're choosing to go that build. And that way you can have more Effulgent Blades per turn without playing those cards. And I found that this season, the rate for Epiphany seems to be a lot lower. Been able to get through the first boss without the Epiphany on this card for most of the runs, and then just duplicate this and roll the 2 separate Epiphanies later on. And then her unique card is Effulgent Release. Starts off as a compression, and then each time it moves to the graveyard, then it comes back to your hand, and after 3 times, then the compression changes to release, and the release is a huge nuke, 882% damage, and then it also exhausts all Effulgent Blades in the graveyard, so synergy with the previous card, creating 18 to 24 Effulgent Blades, and then 120% damage for each exhausted at the end of the turn. Change this card into compression. So if you have 10 copies and you're getting 1200% damage, 20 copies, that'll be 2400% on top of the base 882. So you're easily doing over 3000% if you choose to go with Epiphany 4 of Effulgent Expansion here, creating 6 Effulgent Blades in discard pile. So that's essentially her kit. Copy targets, I think hero to all. 2 copies probably max would be enough. If you had more copies, I think it's a bit of overkill, especially since it's applying link to those cards. And if you're drawing your teammates or other combatant cards, then if those cards do not have quietus or discard function, then that's going to be a waste. Partners, I would definitely recommend pulling Sylvia. She has some insane stats. I did max her upgrade here, Ego Manifestation, but you gain the 24% attack here. I think it's 16% at base, and then each time the assigned combatant's linked cards are used manually or discarded, gain 1 Zephyr, and when Zephyr reaches 3 stacks, you gain 20 to 40% critical damage, and that's a huge boost, and Zephyr is relatively easy to stack up. And then Zephyr also gives plus 30% damage amount to assigned combatants' passion attack cards. I don't remember what the base is, but maxing out at 3 stacks. So here at the max ego, 30% times 3, that's 90 plus 90% damage, which is quite insane for a partner card. And even the ego is rather strong. Select up to 2 cards in hand and play linked. If a select card is assigned combatant links card, plus 10% critical damage to the combatant card for each such card. So you can gain plus 20% critical damage as well as linking up to 2 cards. And then we'll just go over a few sample decks real quick. I haven't played too much yet. Haven't gotten an ideal deck, but here is an example of a deck that I'm working towards. Sword Rain with the linked in quietus keyword. I think that was Epiphany 1. And then Hero to All. Here I got the Divine Epiphany for draw 1, so I kept in this version of it. Ideally, I think Epiphany 1 with the draw 3 and linking them together is probably the best version. But this one works well if you're able to get the draw 1, since it is a 0 cost. And then Threat to Light, if this card is in hand, you get the Orc Graveyard plus 80% damage, so boosting the damage of your other damage cards. And here, what I was saying earlier, if you're able to get Effulgent Expansion duplicated before the Epiphany, then you can get the unique upgrade version as well as one of the skill cards. And then the Persona, there's a few different options. I like this one the best. Discard up to 2 cards, and mainly because not only are you discarding 2 cards, if you're discarding quietus cards, you gain the benefit of the card, but also for each one discarded, you get plus 60% damage amount to attack cards for 1 turn. So if you're able to discard 2 cards, then you gain plus 20% damage. And then for the buffs for this specific card, I think just getting the damage is probably ideal. I didn't get on this version, but here this Persona card has increased damage amount of attack cards by 30% for 1 turn. And then the other is when this card is discarded, activate this card. Also increasing this cost by 1. So if you're able to discard this card, then it activates, and then you'll be able to discard 2 cards, gain damage, and then also increase damage. And then a few other ones. I think there's one that will draw 1, and then if that card is an attack card, then you gain plus morale. And there's another one that will fish a quietus card out of your deck. But I think for the individual buffs, the plus 30% damage is probably the way to go. And then this card is a neutral card that comes from an event in the second half of the Chaos run. And this one says when a linked card is used, draw one and one time per turn. And this one is pretty useful. You play this card, it's out of your deck, and each time a linked card is used, you draw one card per turn. So very useful card for drawing cards each turn. And then items, we'll just go through a few of these, as well as arena mods. This Key of Sleep is one of the better weapons this season, plus 40 damage to attack cards, and then decreasing for the number of targets. So long as you're hitting just one target, then you get the plus 40% damage. And then this arena mod is quite useful as well. When a Quietus card is discarded through an ability by allies, draw one time per turn. So each turn, as long as you're able to discard a Quietus card, then you draw another card. This item, I don't know if it's too good on her, but there's another version of this. When two cards are discarded, you draw one Quietus card. But this is only used one time per battle. And then Nightmare Hairpin, when a single target attack card is used, increase action count to target enemy by 2. If you pair that with this arena mod, when action count increases, plus 50% damage to ally attack cards for one turn. Then at the beginning of the turn, or at when you start your turn, if you play an attack card and then you increase the action count, then you gain this buff. And then this weapon, this ring is I think one of the better ones as well, since it is by 20% at the start of turn, increase damage for each ally persona card in hand. So depending on what your teammates are, and if you're able to have those persona cards in hand, if you're able to have retain or maybe have some sort of draw, such as one of these texts, when Quietus card is discarded, draw one card. Then if you're able to pull that card into your hand at the beginning of the turn, then you'll be able to immediately gain the benefit of the 20% damage. Then this armor, when attacked, you gain 2 resonance, and resonance is on card discard, 80% extra attack. And since you're already going to be building extra attack damage on Heidemarie, then resonance is going to be pretty useful for her. And then this weapon, each time a card is created, plus 20% damage. So you're going to be creating a lot of those cards, the swords and blades. And each time you do, you get plus 20% damage up to 2 times per turn. And then as far as potential goes, I went ahead and just maxed out most of the tree. You don't have to max out the common card, or this basic card proficiency, but it does help in chaos if you use her basic cards at least early on before the removal. And then this one is not necessary, but if you want to get the card epiphany adaptation, then you'll need to get the basic card proficiency here. The memory fragments, there are a couple different options. I know the new set Prelude to Hero, this one is going to be her best in slot. I'm just starting to farm and I have not completed a 4-piece set yet, but you can see here we want to prioritize basically the same damage slots as any other damage character, but she'll also be able to utilize extra attack. So attack flat, attack percent, crit chance, crit damage, and extra damage. So I wouldn't really prioritize any above the other, but they're all pretty equal. I would say that if your ego is at 6, a lot of her damage comes from the E2 extra attack. So if you're at E6, then maybe go for a bit more extra damage. Otherwise, you can probably prioritize crit chance as number 1, and then everything else pretty equally. But if you don't have this new set, don't sacrifice the stats. I would just go ahead and get a 2-piece. You can go with attack percent, crit damage percent, and then a broken piece. Here I just went with max HP because that's what I ended up having. So you can see here, attack extra damage, critical damage, attack crit chance extra damage. But most of these pieces have these same 5 attack modifiers. Then the neck piece, you want crit chance. The ring, you'll want to go with, not sure I have justice damage. You're gonna have to fix that, but I'll change that to passion damage later. And then here you want attack percent. Then the last thing we're going to go over is the ego manifestation. Then E1 is plus 200 damage to Effulgent Release, and that is her purple card. And added damage for each Effulgent Blade in graveyard becomes plus 120%. So this is quite significant. Plus 200 and plus 120% if you're looking at the card itself. If we're looking at the card itself, $882 and 120% per each exhausted. Oh, that's already including this ego. I can't remember what it was before, but I think it was maybe plus 80% or maybe plus 100%. They might have buffed it, but the plus 200% is quite significant. Then Ego 2, at the start of battle, move Effulgent Compression card to hand. So this will just allow you to start the stacks a little bit earlier, and then at the start of the turn, gain 5 Crimson Blade, and Crimson Blade, when a link card is used manually and discarded, 120% extra attack with the highest HP, and then decrease stack by 1. So at the beginning of every turn, you get 5 stacks, and if you don't use all 5, they carry over to the next turn. And the maximum amount of stacks is 8, and each stack will deal 120% damage when a linked card is used manually or discarded. So with 8 stacks or 5 stacks, just say 5 stacks per turn, that's 600% extra attack, which can be further boosted by morale as well as extra attack modifiers. Then Ego 3 is her ego skill, just a little bit more damage, maxing out the cap from 20 to 30. Ego 4, when manually using or discarding her cards, link cards, gain 1 Effulgent Chain. And then Effulgent Chain is plus 5% damage and max of 10 stacks. At max, that is plus 50%. That is a plus, not a buy. So on paper, this seems pretty good, but it's not something that you really need to chase for. If your resources are limited, I would recommend stopping at E2. This one does have a lot of value. Those extra attacks deal a lot of damage, especially in Chaos. Even just discarding a few cards, she does a lot of damage to her opponents. But E6 is the real winner here. Change created Effulgent Blade cards to all attribute cards, and that will make them type effective. So she'll be effective not only in her current Chaos, which has her type attribute of red, but passion. But if she is to go into any other Chaos, then a Fulgent Blade will also deal additional tenacity damage, and I think it's 25% damage bonus for type attribute. And then each time Crimson Blade is activated, plus 40% amount Crimson Blade, which is her E2, with a max of plus 480. So plus 480 to the base 120. That's 600% damage for each Crimson Blade. So if you're using 5 of these per turn, that is 3000% damage. That is quite insane. So if you have the resources and you've been saving up, I would recommend pulling Heidemarie definitely to E6. You can use copies that you have saved up that are in the shop, whether it is through these this currency. I would recommend using this for pulling her characters and buying her copies. The 400 is definitely better value than spending 300 on the partner, just because partner is guaranteed at 70 pulls and the combatant 50-50 at 70. And then I think if you math that out, 300 versus about 450 would be approximately equal. So you're getting a little bit a better deal by spending this on the actual combatant itself. So if you have this saved up, you can use this to purchase 2 copies before the time is out. I think, yeah, you have 25 days right now. And then also there is you might have already used all of them. Yeah, but there is a Omega code that will allow you to purchase or unlock the ego itself. I think we've had 2 already, and then there is a third one that we'll be able to unlock here in the supply store in the second supply, so after 25 days. So technically, if you haven't used any of those, then you have 3 copies that you'll be able to unlock. So if you're able to purchase one in the shop and then unlock 4 or 3 through Omegas, that'll be 4 copies. Then you will only need to be able to pull 3 copies. So if you've been saving up your resources, then you can easily get her to E6. And if you have the resources, definitely go for it. I think she's worth it. Running her in Chaos next to 9, and I'm a huge 9 supporter. You can see that I have 9 here maxed out at E6 as well. The damage comparison is quite night and day. 9 does a lot less than Heidemarie in this current Chaos. If it wasn't for Red, the Passion, then 9 might close that gap some, but I feel Heidemarie at E6, that E6 is really busted, so definitely go for her if you have the resources. In the next video, I think I will go over the new Chaos mode. I'll talk about some strategies that you can utilize to maximize and efficiently farm and grind these runs, and the new resource that they give you that is gated as well here, these delegates. They're really helpful for starting off your runs very quickly, but once you get through those, then you have to actually play. But in the next video, I'll go over some of the strategies for grinding the perfect deck for your Heidemarie. But as always, if you like, please give me a thumbs up. Any comments on whether you should pull, or if you have any questions, send them down below. And as always, have a great day.